Asami Shintaku is a summoning control master. This master of the Oni dampens opponent aggression with her loving embrace. The first ability to understand is A Mother's Love. This ability allows Asami to redirect 2 damage that an Oni suffers within 8 and take that damage herself. This ability really makes it hard for opponents to scalpel out your important pieces when her 14 health pool can be used by anyone else in the keyword. Combine this with the crew card ability Beyond Invasion, well, specifically the trigger on the action. The action allows any Oni unique to make rift markers, but the trigger allows them to re-summon Asami after she has died for the cost of 3 stones. So after Asami has absorbed 14 damage from the enemy crew, she can just be summoned right back. The rift markers that this action creates are not too special in general. Oni models can remove the rift markers after succeeding in attacks to increase the damage, but typically many models in the keyword use them for interesting effects. The crew card allows any Oni model to remove a rift after resolving a move to heal 3. You're probably starting to see a pretty common play pattern where Asami can absorb all the damage from your opponent, heal with rifts, and if she dies, she just comes right back. But what does she do with her actual actions? Asami's signature action, Oni Strength, allows her to make Oni models fast as long as they are within an inch of a rift marker. She can transfer actions down to other Oni with this action, or summon unique Oni with her action, Sinister Revelation. This action allows you to summon unique Oni rather than minions. However, they gain a flicker, which is an unremovable token that kills the model in the end phase. Your crew spent the day hacking and slashing at smirking demons that feel nothing but the love of their mother. Swords that found purchase cause the demons to just evaporate in thin air or revel in their own demise. Weary combatants eventually slow down enough to be shoved into a rift into Asami's realm of demons. Welcome to the Playbook, where I help bridge the gap between reading the cards and diving deep into the tactical depth of Malifaux 4th edition. Shintaku is a control master with some splashes of denial and support. She will primarily win games by responding to your opponent. Once she knows what's important to an opponent, she can absorb these effects with her massive health pool or bog down key support models. In a standard sort of front to back fight, she'll be at a bit of a disadvantage because spending all your master AP to make cheaper models fast or to summon models that will disappear is not a high value long term plan. So most of my plays will use the more cagey side of the keyword, and they're really good at turning off opponents' scoring plans. In these plays, we'll be playing against Rasputina's Winter's Teeth from the previous video. If you haven't seen that, check it out. I recently attended Richmond Open, 5-round 2-day Malifaux event where I played Asami for both days, and I didn't change my Shintaku list the entire weekend, and here's that list. First we got Asami Shintaku, Amanazako, a jack-of-all-trades master of none totem that has flight and a few tricks. Her biggest activation is when she uses Dark Miasma to give all enemy models within 2 slow or stun. Ohaguro Batari, who I'll be calling Ohag for the rest of the video. This is an auto-include beater that has easy access to plus flips, shove aside, 7 speed, and 6/6. If you're playing Shintaku, Ohag's activations often feel like your actual master activations. The Kamatachi, a support model that can heal and put out rifts and push model around. Joragumo, a little beater that can eat other Oni for fast and can move friendly or enemy models with Bewitching Weave. 3 Tengu. Honestly, the best part about Shintaku is that you can keep your Tengu alive. These are just leaping models, but combined with Mother's Love, you can ensure that they can actually get the interacts off. Shadow Emissary. I'm using this Papa Akaname model from the other side as my Oni Emissary. And Shintaku's exceptional at the interact-heavy strategies, and Emissary also has leaps, so it makes a natural fit. So play 1 is the Aviary. Now, as I just mentioned, the Tengu feel like one of the strongest parts about playing Shintaku. Just a cheap minion that leaps on a 6, has flight natively, and stealth, combines really well with Shintaku and her 8-inch bubble of being able to protect friendly models by, using a Mother's Love. So with this first play, we're going to basically deploy our entire crew on one flank so that we can stay within that 8-inch bubble of Shintaku. And we're playing against Rasputina in Boundary Dispute. So if you watch my Boundary Dispute, or if you watch my Rasputina video, you might recognize the fact that Rasputina hired both Cedra and the December Acolyte, in addition to 2 Call Guys, to throw the strategy marker into my deployment zone on turn 1. And you can do that by pushing the 2 strategy markers down each flank into a From Shadows Call Guys so that, just throw them super far forward. Shintaku is exceptional at responding to these kind of aggressive interact plays because she can keep the Tengu alive so they can actually hold their activations to later in the turn and push the strategy markers back. So with this play, we're going to be running our entire crew down the right flank and just keeping the birds alive, because if we keep them alive all game, we will be way ahead on action economy for, those turn 4 2-point strategy swings. I put the emissary on the left flank because it can be a little more self-sufficient. I can give it either the butterfly jump or the incorporeal upgrade to keep it alive depending on my enemy crew. In this case, I have the butterfly jump upgrade because it allows me, if Rasputina throws a pillar out and does a spell at me, I can then push away from the pillar. With our first activation, we activate the Kamatachi and push forward Ohag and Shintaku. We can be as aggressive with Shintaku as we really want to be because our goal is for her to die anyway, either through absorbing damage from our opponent that they directed other Oni or just herself. I typically choose Ohag as the other push we do with the Kamatachi because we want to give Ohag fast and have her in a forward position for later. Now, like I said before, Shintaku is great at responding. So with our first few activations, we're basically just waiting for our opponent to do something that we can then react to. And we can burn off a few activations either by having a Tengu move the strategy more forward, or Amanazako just sort of flying around moving strategy markers, or using the crew card signature action to put rifts out. You can't go wrong with more rifts, because more rifts is more fast that Asami could hand out with her signature action. Or you can score things like Reshape the Land, and Ohag really wants them as well. One little piece of tech is if you can drop a scheme marker in your deployment zone with either a Tengu or Amanazako, something like that, that enables things like breakthrough, but also the Tengu's demise allows them to place a scheme marker base to base with them when they die, which could be game winning if you have some scheme marker in your deployment zone and then they kill the model. They kill a Tengu, but then the Tengu demise causes that scheme marker to go forward, and you score something like Ensnare, Detonate Charges, blah, blah, blah. The first real aggressive move of the game occurs when the Snowstorm goes forward, puts a pillar right next to Shintaku and Ohag, so that Asami can go into the next activation and start slinging spells into either Ohag or Asami. I really don't want those spells to go into Ohag, because as the game will go on, she just prints value. And unfortunately, Rasputina has Ruthless, which is one of the big weaknesses of Shintaku because that turns off a mother's love. So I say, okay, it's a good enough time to do Shintaku. She walks forward and slams the ice pillar and summons Lady Yume. Now, Lady Yume is my favorite summon with Shintaku by a country mile. And that's because she has the action Coil Around Prey, which allows her to target an enemy or a friendly and place them base to base with her. But importantly, it has a built-in trigger to remove a condition. So while Lady Yume comes into play with a flicker and a slow and a summon, she can then use Coil Around Prey to remove her slow. So when I summon Lady Yume, I'm going to be careful to put her within 6 of Ohag, because once things start to heat up, Lady Yume is going to Coil Around Prey into Ohag to bring her forward and then remove her slow, and then she can charge and swing 2 times. With my last Asami action, I actually gave Ohag fast. Now, as the game's played out, Rasputina has been aggressive down the left flank, which I can't do too much about because the emissary's on that flank, and emissary already has plenty to do with its action points. And she's saving Rasputina, Bash, Blessed of December as sort of the last activations. So I really want to disrupt that right flank that they've been saving to the end of the turn. And when it's Lady Yume's activation, she does what we talked about. She places Ohag base to base with her. She charges into Bash to engage him and just be annoying. I actually end up her Tomes trigger that allows me to place Bash within 6, so I actually end up throwing him basically to the table edge. When it's Rasputina's action, she has a bit of a predicament because Bash is out of her line of sight, so she can't use her signature action to get Bash to charge back in. But I made a critical little misplay here. Ohag is towing in the forest, so Rasputina can then empower and sling a couple spells into Ohag. Typically, this wouldn't be that big of a problem because Shintaku's in a position to absorb, 2 damage from each spell. Like typically it would be 2 damage on Shintaku, or 2 damage on Ohag, 4 on Shintaku from the 2 spells. But because Rasputina has Ruthless, Ohag ends up taking 6 and getting slow, removing her fast token. But Rasputina has to walk behind the house so that she can target Bash with her signature action to get him back into the play. The Blessed of December walks forward, kicks the strategy up to the Callgeist. That is Ohag's signal to go. She can use either her signature action to pull the enemy model and then drop a rift, or she can use her crew card signature action to drop a rift. Obviously, the former requires a resisted duel, while the latter is just a simple duel. So typically you want to just do the simple duel, put a rift down next to what you're attacking so that you get the built-in plus flips from Ohag's melee attack if you're within 1 of a rift marker. With my first attack, I empower with a mask so that I can shove aside the Blessed of December, go into the Callgeist, and take 2 more swings, 1 from the shove aside trigger, and 1 with my second AP. And if I wouldn't have got slowed, if I would have played a little better and avoided Rasputina, I would still have a fast AP here. And you can see why Ohag's activations often feel like your actual master's activation with this crew. And I'm able to finish off the Callgeist. As the rest of the turn plays out, there's not really much Rasputina can do. I mean, there's things that she can do, but there's not a lot of choices left. Bash is only really in threat range of Lady Yume. He can push to the ice pillar and try and go around her, but there's still not much for him to do. And I'm saving 1 Tengu and 1 Joragumo activation towards the end of basically when I run out of things that I can do in the middle to annoy my opponent. At some point, the Shadow Emissary leapt through the enemy strategy marker back out of the deployment zone and moved ours forward. And the Joragumo can use Bewitching Weave either on an enemy model if you're in something like Informants, or a friendly model in something like Boundary Dispute to move models 4 inches. In this case, I moved the Tengu twice, such that it is within an inch of my strategy marker when it starts its activation. So in its activation, it can throw my strategy marker over the center line and then leap to position to throw the enemy strategy marker back. So at the end of turn 1, Lady Yume will disappear, but we won strategy, and our models are positioned in a way where our opponent doesn't really have a lot to bite a hold of yet. If they try to start messing with the Tengu, I can respond. Whenever something gets a little too far forward, I can summon something in its face. If I get a whiff of a scheme, I can throw summons on top of their strategy markers to prevent them from being pushed, or I can use Tengu to deny any scheme markers. And if we're able to keep the Tengu alive throughout the duration of the game, then we're basically going to carry out a strategy-based victory by the end. Now, play 2 is Oni's Strength. This is something we would want to do if it's not one of those interact-heavy strategies. In this case, we're playing Informants. We're still going to keep the triple Tengu because they can be so good at schemes and things like that, but we cannot be as aggressive with them as we wanted to be in the previous deployment and strategy, because in that deployment and strategy, we were able to keep everything within 8 and push down that right flank. In this situation, it's Informants, so we have to spread out basically by the nature of the strategy, and Standard makes this sort of split a little more. So I've put the bulk of my combat models in one place, and this sort of play is particularly good when you know your models have to take a space and hold it. And basically what we're going to be doing is trying to make as many models in our keyword fast and attack the center as much as possible, all while keeping everything within Asami's 8-inch bubble. So it's basically like you can treat every member of the keyword as like an offensive line, and Asami's the quarterback. We're going to start out with a Kamitachi, push Asami and Ohag forward again. With the Tengu, I just can't be aggressive with them. They're just easy kills for Rasputina. So since they have stealth, I will often just leap, interact to drop a scheme either in my deployment zone or in a place where it can eventually be my demise target, and then prepare to give them a shield for later. Now when it's Asami's activation, with this play we can go pretty early with Asami because she's basically just going to be handing out as much fast as she can. She's going to summon Lady Yume, but I'm going to put her in a position that's within 6 of especially the Joragumo, but also as many models as I want to pull forward. And then, I end up giving fast to the Emissary and Ohag and Amanazako. My opponent starts to start throwing some pillars in my face, I don't want them to stop me from getting to the strategy markers, so Lady Yume goes next. She actually slams one of the pillars and starts using Coil Around Prey to pull the rest of the Oni forward. Now, if I had 3 actions, I would pull, the Emissary or something, but I had to slam that pillar to open up space. Now, what's important is Lady Yume has a Flicker token, so she will be dying in the end phase, and she's already activated to pull all the friendly models forward. So when the Juragumo activates, even though Asami did not give him fast, he can just eat Lady Yume to gain fast. So the Juragumo goes and takes 3 swings into the Snowstorm. Can even use his signature action and try and give an unactivated model stun, because if I give someone like Bash stun, that's a pretty big economic issue for him. Because my Juragumo has extended reach, so what Bash would love to do is push towards that ice pillar and then not have to charge Juragumo, but if he gets stunned, then he's just going to have to walk and bite and do 4 damage with no triggers. So our goal with this play is to just make as big as a nasty ball as we can make, take some space, and prevent our Tengu from getting attacked. Because we don't have to win this fight to win the game. We just have to stop our opponent from pushing so far through us that they have enough left on the board to win the strategy and scheme at the end of the game. So we end up trading the Juragumo for the Snowstorm at the end of turn 1, but we've made this ball, and fast Amanazako can then go in, use her Dark Miasma action, and spend a stone on its trigger to automatically give all those models within 2 slow or stunned. So now we've created a big enough death ball that we can start absorbing damage with Shintaku, and I mean, you have so much healing in the crew that even if you don't have that much damage, you can often win these center fights with the combination of Asami absorbing damage, Kamatachi healing Asami, and all the fast you can give out. And play 3 is hired Yume. Now in that last play, we created quite a mess, but what actually ended up happening at the end of the game is Rasputina was able to throw enough pillars near Tengu and use her ruthless abilities to scalpel out everything that was going to interact. That middle became a slog. Rasputina ended up winning slightly on these schemes because of her ability to just completely decimate the Tengu. And that could be sort of an issue with this crew, is that there are some obvious on-the-card counters to what you're going to be doing. One is Ruthlessness, one is Exorcism. That triggers on a lot of models and it just deletes a summon. So if you're spending an 11 to summon Lady Yume right in the middle to bog something down and then they just go delete it, that can be a problem. So with this play, what we're trying to do is create a situation that is not super reliant on a Mother's Love or our summoned model. So instead of hiring the Kamatachi, we're going to be summon the Kamatachi and we're hiring Lady Yume. So we drop 2 Tengu in the Kamatachi for Lady Yume and another Juragumo. Now the basic synergy here is when you summon the Kamatachi, it can then activate, put down some rifts, move some models, heal some models. But then a Juragumo can eat it to gain fast and also trigger its demise. The Kamatachi's demise is place a model that is within 6, place it within 4. That's a massive threat increase for the 50mm Juragumos. So with this play, we're going to be less reliant on our bubble. And as such, we're going to try and not let our opponent bubble. So the entirety of play 1 is about splitting our opponent's crew so that we can scalpel out important pieces with our less stellar damage, but our ability to attack any vector with our crazy threat range. So instead of giving everything fast before it activates, I would rather give things fast after they activate, because I want to play a more conservative turn where I'm camping on my informant's marker and giving them fast for the next turn. But I gotta give my opponent something to chew on. So my emissary and one of the Juragumo rockets are going to try and split the enemy crew by diving deep while I sit on fast close to home. So we didn't hire Kamatachi, so he can't go first. So Ohag walks forward and uses her signature action, Hunting Song, to pull 2 of my friendly models to me, Lady Yume and the emissary in this case, and I get to drop rift markers. I want to be conservative with, part of my crew, so I have one Juragumo push the other Juragumo forward, as well as Amanazaka to sort of project some threat to keep them a little bit further back, but also get the missile launching Juragumo, the spider rocket, in position for Asami's activation. Next, Asami can go, and give the Emissary and Ohag fast, as well as summon the Kamatachi. Now, because you have a lower summoning target number with this play as opposed to the Lady Yume summoning plays, you often will have more Severes for combat, so it does have that advantage. And the Kamatachi's summoning placement is a little tricky because what we're going to want to do with the Kamatachi is use either the healing signature action he has, the rift-making signature action he has from the crew card, and then one Dust Devil to move the Joragumo forward. So, but the Joragumo has to end where it's still within 2 of the Kamatachi so that I can eat it. So you want to put the Kamatachi forward so it's not going to push the Joragumo out of its own range. Now I'm playing a more conservative turn, so it's mostly just like jabs back and forth. I'm trying to score Reshape the Lands, so Lady Yume just walks into a place where she's contesting the strategy marker, starts throwing out rifts with the crew card signature action. Now when it's the Kamatachi's activation, he Dust Devils the Joragumo forward, throws a rift marker out for Reshape the Land. When it's the Joragumo's activation, he eats the Kamatachi, which triggers its demise. He places within 4. Now, it's a tricky position where I could place within 4 and be on the other side of this wall, but I would then be engaged by that silent one. So instead, I elect to scale the wall so that I can charge into Rasputina, who has like no real defensive abilities. So we charged her in her deployment zone with 2 swings left and a signature action to give her stunned. And later in the turn, the Emissary leapt with fast and flew halfway across the board into Cedra. So you can see the shape of a play in which we've made our crew less reliant on the bubble. We threw in these 2 models deep into enemy territory where they're going to have to come back and respond to them. You know, Bash is going to have to go back into the Emissary. Snowstorm's probably going to have to go back into the Joragumo. That's going to give us the space we need to score strategy, to get all of our scheming done, and to pick off vulnerable models like the Blessed of December without having to wade through a giant bubble of December models. And that's it. That's 3 plays for Asami Shintaku. Now, like I said, I took this Asami crew to Richmond Open last weekend. I did pretty well. I went 4-0-1. I got 2nd place. I played Asami all 5 rounds. But importantly, I got the experience enough to make these 2 videos for both versions of Asami. The next version is going to be coming out pretty soon. And I'm going to be giving away this Asami crew. So 2 people who are on my Patreon will be selected to do a tabletop simulator battle, the winner of which will take home this crew. So if you're interested in that, subscribe and keep a lookout.